Welcome to the Open Jaw Forum on the post-COVID nature of the travel industry. And we're calling it The Worst is Over, Now What? And now what? One of the most pressing issues to the now what is the staffing crisis. And a lot of us have a lot to say about it, and a lot of us are experiencing it. And we talked a bit about that with Rocky and Frank last time. And we got some great feedback from that interview. So we wanted to continue the discussion, mainly really to raise some of the issues so that the viewers can know that these issues are not, you're not alone in experiencing some of the challenges out there. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody's discussing it in their own individual organizations, and we're here today to share some of those ideas, to discuss the challenges and potentially what can be done about it. So, Richard, I want to start with you from the retail side. The staffing issues I know are on both sides of the coin. They're on the retail side and also on the supplier side. Now, retailers have been really having a difficult time with the bottleneck. Bookings are coming in, they can't reach the suppliers. How are you seeing that at Trip Central?
Well, we're seeing it on a number of ways. One is the technology doesn't allow us to make changes easily. So booking modifications are troublesome, where we have to get on the phone, and we try to avoid being on the phones, but the systems don't permit us to actually make modifications. I think even more important, I think this is the apparent problem. I think that the core problem is, and we saw this prior to the pandemic, that there's a perception that this industry doesn't have a future. And that is a false perception. And I think that's already a challenge leading into it. And now the pandemic has even further exposed an instability of revenue matching the work that gets done. And I think that when we've lost people in this time, they've headed for the secure areas. They've gone to the government. They've gone to regulated businesses that are not as volatile as us. And I think we have to look at the whole revenue model and the stability of revenue in order to make sure that there's an ability to attract the best people into the business.
So I think there's a short-term problem and there's a long-term problem, of course. And the long-term problem being that we need to attract new blood is not a new problem. This is a problem going back a couple of decades. We've been talking about the same issue for a very, very long time. And I know, Wendy, you've got a lot to say on that front. But to just stick to the very, very existing problem right now, where advisors are getting bookings, they want to make money, obviously. They want to get back to being on their feet. They want to be profitable, and they are frustrated. And Nicole, I want you to address that, if you don't mind, from the supplier side, the tour operator side, because you're trying to get more people in, and you're just as frustrated as the advisors. So please talk to that.
Sure. So it's twofold. It's one, keeping the existing staff happy, satisfied, reducing their mental anxiety and their stress in, usually a crisis is a month long, maybe. So having a 2-year-long crisis is trying on people. So we have to make sure we're treating our existing staff well so they don't exit. At the same time, recruiting a lot of new people into the call center primarily, but other areas as well of the company. So we've been aggressive in our recruitment strategy, paying a fair salary, increasing some of the benefits for these people so that Transat is attractive, but more importantly, that the industry is an attractive choice for them. Because Richard, you're absolutely right. We've had that same experience of losing people to banking, government jobs, and so on. And all of us that have been in travel for a long time, we know travel can be a very fun place to be. It hasn't been fun for the last 2 years. So I think, though, the worst is over, as you mentioned, Nina, and we're seeing great strides in that. At the same time, we understand that there's pitfalls with technology, and we have to do a better job of having self-service capabilities, either temporary measures like online forms, but more importantly, spending money to improve our technology.
And I want to talk about technology, and certainly the legacy technology that we've inherited over the last 30, 40 years. But Rocky, when it comes to bookings and being on hold, you have an opinion about that, as you do about a lot of things. So I really want to hear from you.
What COVID has done is just amplified everything, and more dependency on our partners, our suppliers, to connect with them and make things happen. So what I like about what's happening here is, and one thing that COVID has done is we've now realized that we truly are in this together, and we're now realizing the value that the frontline advisor plays in the equal chain of travel, and we need to sit down collaboratively together and actually map out solutions, because you having a labor shortage or technology glitches, us having labor shortages and in our own dysfunctionality. I mean, we have as many problems as you guys have. Yours is more amplified because you're just larger entities, but we need to sit down when you're mapping out these solutions to sit at the table and say, if you do this, what's the impact to us? And Air Canada, Lisa, a lot of times, you do things, and now Air Canada's done a much better job of giving us a heads up of what they're doing and actually engaging us in conversations before they roll out things, which has been a lot better. But can that be even more better? Absolutely. But the fact that we're willing to have these conversations, to me, is it's paramount, and it is definitely a big leap in the right direction.
Lisa, I know you can't necessarily talk to Air Canada Vacations, but you, to some degree, I think you will have some awareness, and you certainly work a lot with Nino. And Nicole, you've put out a lot of online tools, and I know I've worked with ACV to some degree with some of their online tools. And they find, as do you, I think, Nicole, some frustration that retailers are not using the tools. The first reaction is to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. Is that still the case? And if so, what do we need to do? Like, for instance, you do a lot of leisure. Mm-hmm. Do you find that your advisors are using some of these tools?
Well, when the war is on and the ceiling's coming down, and it's hard to get the attention to the front line to do the training to make sure that they're using the tools, because they're on hold trying to make the changes. So you're in the war zone, and you've got to learn how to operate new weapons, right? So I think it takes time, and people have to be patient. It's not just a matter of here's an email and a press release and it's all going to happen. It takes time and effort to carve out of the day to say, are you aware of this? So we try to test the things ahead of time. Sometimes they don't always work. But I think what's important is that with technology as well is to be careful that perfection is the enemy of good, right? A lot of times a semi-automation will make a big difference and take a lot of pressure off for a time until something better gets done. And I think a lot of times, there's nothing in the pipeline for making changes today. So there's some modifications for seat selections and small things and things like that, but when it comes to really changing a booking, there's still nothing.
Especially in a very fluid, volatile, unpredictable environment, with so many future travel credits, cancellations, rebookings, people, and there's such an influx of demand that things aren't streamlined the way they used to be, or as predictable. There's so many variables, and so the more variables, that's where it challenges the legacy systems, because the legacy systems are built on, if this happens, then that happens, and that happens. But the reality is, things are coming at all of us differently. Things are coming at yourselves differently. And so, what is the solution? And again, I think having flexible platforms, or empowering us as your frontline providers of the connectivity between the client, the products, the services, you need to empower us more. You need to entrust us that we will do the right things, and if we don't, we'll have conversations about that. But if you don't empower us, we're gridlocked.
Yeah, if I could just pick up on that, because I think there's two things. A lot of these issues, they were there before.
Yes, absolutely.
And if there's anything good that's come out of it, it's at scale, and because it's at scale, we've been forced now to address it, and we actually have more information to be able to come up with solutions to do it. But the other piece, and you kind of talked to it, is the complexity, and even information. There's such an overflow of information. One of the things I think we can do is make it easier to consume and find and get that information. That's very efficient, because I know I'm sure you're dealing with many airlines, many issues, many different products. Mm-hmm. So having information that's easy to find and consume, so that you don't have to call, I think that's helpful. I think for sure at Air Canada we are aware of all of these shortfalls, and we're working very hard to find automated ways to do it. And speaking to ACV, although it's not my area, their area is far more complex than at Air Canada, because it's a more complex product.
Yeah.
So they are attempting to do that. and they have the same resource issues, and we need to empower our employees so that they can serve, to serve.
But what I would
Frank,
add to
yeah.
that, what I would add to that is that number one, patience is going to be required for this industry. We are dealing with a lot of legacy technology that we have to overcome. And the fact that we're getting together here on an open forum to discuss, that's our first step. And we recognize the issue in the industry. And we definitely do not want to minimize the impact of the travel trade and what it has. And we want to empower the travel trade to the best ability that we possibly can as an organization. I think that goes for Air Canada and Transat and yourselves. We want to empower you, but it's a little bit more complicated. This is where patience is going to be required. And the fact that we can get together, have this conversation so we can make material changes. The fact that we're just thinking about getting away from legacy technology, that's our first step. So what we're doing in our organization is we're going to the cloud. We're adopting applications that can sit on top of one another so it can be more robust. And these are the areas, and it's not easy to move a big ship. It has to be done in small baby steps. But we do recognize, I recognize, and everybody recognizes, that we have a fundamental issue when it comes to technology and delivering self-servicing functionality to the industry and the travel trade so we don't make your life complicated.
To me, the travel industry, airlines, etc., were the very first to be automated, right? I mean, you look at green screens and Reservec and whatever else, those were the systems, right? It all looked computerized, very advanced, but that has really been the bane of our existence because that's been the sort of albatross that has kept us, way back and not allowed us to advance. So, what were you saying?
Well, one of the reasons is it works. It
it
works
works.
in big scale because honestly, some days we're on Sabre. I want my MS-DOS Sabre on 9600 baud because it's faster than what we get today in terms of the user interface. It's funny because some things you be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But I was saying is like most of the technology in the industry is like the Flintstones. It's press a button and a little chimp chips out the picture of the camera that's going on, or elephants vacuuming. That's what the traveling technology is like now. And it does need an enema, for sure.
we will all agree with that. Now, the Sabre may work for you, but if I look at Lisa, the Sabre is costing her a fortune.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, something has to give.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's important that, my motto is we want to be our best selves on all shelves. And really, in the end, what works best is what's efficient, is what's going to win. So we have an obligation to make sure that we're our best selves on all shelves. That's my personal motto.
Let's not also forget, 2019, we're all coming up an all-time high in the industry.
Yeah.
We all looked at record sales. We were going a mile a minute. How much time did we actually have time to pause and relook at all of our processes the way we should have? We've had 2 years now. We've been doing all of those things over the last 2 years in our organization. But it will require additional time to get them implemented now. But we do recognize that change has to come within this industry.
Yeah.
If I may, Nina, look at it from a different perspective, and from a retailer perspective, if I may. The legacy is that an advisor needs to be great on automation, great processor, great communicator with the clients, a financial whiz, a travel whiz, and the reality is you can't be all those things. Not in a sophisticated market where the client's looking for high-level advisory information. So we need to change the way we do business also. So we have to have our frontline folks that are really engaging with the client, get to know the client, understand the client, have that communication. What the problem is the folks that are really great at that aren't necessarily the best at processing.
Technology.
And so they make a lot of sales, they build a lot of profile, like they build a lot of packages, but then when they have to process them, it breaks down. And then they're looking into the system, and then they don't have the time to get trained on all the various components of it. So there's a breakdown in our system. So we also need to kind of, if you're big enough, you have to scale up. You have to have the folks that are great frontline facing, great mid-agency processors, and then all that information flows to the back offices clean and accurate. Because when the frontline folks mess up the entry components, it flows all the way back and it really mucks up our systems. And then we have calls, where's my check, where's my commission, you didn't do the invoice. And so we create our own problems, and that's why I'm saying it's not only yourselves that our partners. We need to change the way we're doing business, and we need to kind of sit down together and say, from the beginning, from the time the client calls to the time the commission check gets paid, what's the whole flow process? How can we make it more efficient, collectively?
But
That's
on
really the big
corporate
conversation.
side, on the corporate side, I always hear that where the buck stops is on technology, that really the competition is technology. Who's got the biggest processors, if you will. So
Corporate is much more simple. It's air, it's hotel, it's transfer, and the GDS so far has managed to really expedite that extremely efficiently. That's what Richard was referring to. It's when you're trying to do dynamic pricing, dynamic inventory search, flexible packaging, credits, refunds, exchanges. Even the GDS can't do that efficiently. But what the corporate folks have done is they've pushed all the work to the traveler, and so they actually want everybody to self-book. Where on the other side of the business, it's the conversation you're having with the traveler,
Right.
with the travel planners that are more meaningful. And at the same time, in a complex environment, you still have to have a conversation with the traveler, because I pity the person that self-books himself and gets on a plane and thinks it's going to be as simple as it was before COVID, because there's so many landmines out there. I personally would never book my own travel. I mean, I'm depending on my advisor, who does a great job and looks after me. And when I get stuck anywhere in the world, I pick up the phone and I find him. I won't touch anything myself, because I know how complicated it is out there.
I have a number for you. I couldn't resist.
very good, very good. Wendy,
Touché.
training and recruitment. I mean, really, besides technology, that's what's going to save the industry, and that's what's killing us. So Actis put in a few measures on that front. So let's talk a bit about the research that you have and what you are implementing.
Okay, so we've known for a very long time that there would be an acute labor shortage, not only in travel, for travel agents, but really for all of Canada, and in fact, most countries in the world. And part of that reason is because of sheer demographics. We have the biggest demographic, which is the baby boom demographic, has already started to retire, and the generation behind them is called the bus generation, in that there's not enough of them to fill the positions that are becoming vacant. So as I mentioned, we've known for a couple of decades that this was coming, and in 2019 it actually was forecasted that for travel agents we would be short approximately 30% of labor from 2019 right to 2035 because of those demographics. And so COVID has just exacerbated or sped that up. At the end of September, our industry, so travel agents, we were the hardest hit of the hardest hit industry when it came to labor. Our labor had dropped 42%. So here we are now in the spring of 2022, and our labor is still 30% down compared to 2019. And so if you think about what I talked about, we are, as far as demographics go, expected, if we don't do something dramatic, that we are going to be in the situation we are today for the next 10, 15 years. And so we need to work together as an industry. Because not only are we short travel agents, that tourism and hospitality is going to be short hundreds of thousands of workers. The banking industry is going to be short thousands, tens upon tens of thousands of workers. So it is our next mountain to climb, and we're going to have to do it together.
How can you compare working in a bank
I know.
to travel? I mean, let's face
Well,
it.
it's stable, and that's what I said in the beginning. Is
Yeah.
that if the revenue stream isn't dealt with, or effectively the travel agency side of the business is on contingency,
Yeah.
we get paid if the trip happens.
And that's,
Okay.
yeah.
This is a problem. Or we face, okay, you get paid, but you might have to give it back. So this alone, this causes this instability. I think that needs to be dealt with somehow in how this is restructured. And if it ain't lucrative, it better be fun.
Is this
And
something
it hasn't been
that's
fun, and so I'm looking to our suppliers to say,
Yeah,
let's make it fun.
It has been extremely rewarding for those of
Yes.
us for this last couple of years that have gotten us to the other side. I've never worked so hard. I've never worked in my leadership team and my company to come together and plow through what we just did. It's so the accomplishment is so rewarding that and it validated why I love to be in this industry. Like any of us who are sitting on these couches, for us to be sitting here, we love this industry enough to go through what we just did.
Yes.
And now it's a matter of how do we take it to the next level? And what I'm also encouraged is the folks that have stuck around, they're looking at this industry not the way it was 30 years ago, where I'm going to join it because I want to travel. I want to join it because I want to go to cocktail parties. This is a career. This is something that really makes a difference to people all over the world. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Are you passionate about this? Are you passionate about helping people connect to other parts of the world and do all the good things that travel actually does? And if you are, then we will figure out the dollars and cents, because the dollars and cents that are available to us is substantially more than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, there's folks in my shop that are making well over 100,000, and there's some folks that are making over $500,000. And when people realize that you can join this industry and make that kind of money, it's not what it used to be. There is really big opportunities to make money, and then once you have money, then you can fix all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so many good things about this business.
I think it's sorry. I'm
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and everybody who works in the travel industry is an ambassador for our industry.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
and I'm guilty of it, lamenting my problems on Facebook from time to time. But it's we all need to address the situation that we're living in, but accept the fact, like you said, the worst is over. We believe that. Honestly, it's in our hearts. We believe it. And now, what's next? Part of it is remembering the good old days,
Yes.
but also recreating the good old days. And the good old days are, they meant a lot to us, but we may never go back to those big party atmosphere of,
Right.
what's Days of Vegas kind of a mentality. But for the new people coming in, the younger people, what is important to them? Work and life balance, work from home
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
We have to reinvent it so that they're connected to the brand that they work for, connected to the larger community, but have a whole different model if that's the model they want to work in. So we do
Because-
have to reinvent.
I really, really wonder about that, and I'm sort of shifting topics here a little bit, but I find that what kept us, is a little bit of craziness, because it's an addiction. Honestly, you try and leave. You always come back, right? You just do. You come back. It's an addiction, and the addiction is to a sort of an adrenaline rush of always being creative, always having to reinvent, and there was a real fulfillment.
Personal challenge.
Right.
Yes,
Personal challenge.
every day was a challenge, and part of it is because it's a perishable product. You always have to be on your toes. But I don't know that those qualities or qualifiers, if you will necessarily apply to the new generation.
Resonate.
Because, as you say, they want the work balance. I don't know if the same type of mentality of always having to be creative, always having to kind of come up with the next new thing is going to be the same. And Frank, you're nodding your head. Go ahead.
Well, this is the great opportunity that we have in this industry today. If we want to attract new talent into the industry, we have to behave in today's modern age.
Yeah.
Meaning we have to
Not crazy?
provide the tools. And so I think there's a tremendous
We've just gone full
uplift.
circle. We're back to the technology.
No, there's a tremendous uplift in this
Yeah.
industry that we have the ability to make modern changes.
Yes.
that will last for decades.
Yes.
And this is on us now.
Yeah.
We have to make these modern changes if we would like to attract new talent into the industry.
And I
This
think,
is our
and I
challenge.
think the human element of selling travel, the influence, this is the value to our suppliers, right? At the end of the
Yes.
day. Now, it was a lot easier when the cancellation rate was 2%.
Right.
We could really reward influence and sales, and this is what we want. Now, of course, it's been different. It's just been get them booked. Our sales process is out the window. But I think there's a lot of people that have left the industry that would come back because we're talking to them and they're working in government
Yeah.
and they don't like it.
Yeah.
And-
But they just need to feel that sense of security.
Yeah.
And I think the travel will bring them back,
Yeah.
their clients will bring them back, but the environment has to be right.
And they are coming back. I mean, we've
Yeah,
had
they are.
people that have left and have done exactly that and have come back because
Yeah.
they missed it.
And certainly in travel agency services and independent travel agents, we need youth. So one
Yes.
of the things is that traveling across the country, when I started at ACTA, it was so clear that we have a youth issue in our industry. So for us to be successful, having a second career and our mature workforce that we do, that's a piece of the puzzle and a really important piece of the puzzle. But we must attract 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30 years old. And I think that we can do it. It's going to be tough because of demographics, but we sell the most amazing product on earth.
Hello.
And it is, and we shouldn't be shy about that. And as we have to fix all of the problems like we've talked about, but we have the privilege and these new entrants to the travel industry. Wow.
On that note, thank you. This was, I don't know, I hope that people enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it because each and every one of you is so rich.
But we're gonna have more youth sitting.
We're going to
next
have more
time.
youths
Yeah,
next
next
time.
time.
We're going to have some
That's
youths.
a goal. It's an aspiration.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed
Thanks,
hearing
guys.
from
You
each
guys
and
are
every one of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck to everyone.